Hello and welcome to another devotion from New Life Community Church of the Nazarene. And we are going to be looking at 2 Peter chapter 2, and we're going to be looking at verses 4 and following. As I promised yesterday, I was going to go back to verse 3, 1 through 3. Well, maybe I'll go back a little bit. But we're going to move ahead, and we're actually going to cover a fairly large section today. We're going to look at through verse 10. So 4 through 10. And I just want to remind you, yesterday I talked about the fact that don't be deceived, that while it may appear as those who are lying, those who are deceiving, those who are false prophets, those who are false teachers, while the wicked may appear to be successful and prospering, as Peter says at the end of verse 3, their condemnation from long ago is not idle, and their destruction is not asleep. So he goes on then, and he elucidates this theme in verses 4 through 10. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell, and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment, if he did not spare the ancient world, but preserved Noah, a herald of righteousness, with 7 others, when he brought a flood upon the world of the ungodly, if by turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to ashes, he condemned them to extinction, making them an example of what is going to happen to the ungodly, and if he rescued righteous Lot, greatly distressed by the sensual conduct of the wicked, for as that righteous man lived among them day after day, he was tormenting his righteous soul over their lawless deeds that he saw and heard. At least we hope he was. Then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials and to keep the unrighteous under punishment until the day of judgment, and especially those who indulge in the lust of defiling passion and despise authority. Bold and willful, they do not tremble as they blaspheme the glorious ones. And that goes on. That's the end of verse 10, but it's actually connected to verse 11. Once again, I'm just going to remind you, don't pay too much attention to where verses break things. Oftentimes, they break it in the middle of a thought. Don't pay too much attention to where chapter headings are, because oftentimes they break it in the middle of a thought as well, as did chapter 2, separating the false prophets from the true prophets in chapter 1. So we come back to this, and we have a principle here. Oftentimes it looks as though the wicked prosper and the righteous fail. Oftentimes it looks as though those who don't honor God, don't do things his way, they actually do. They're thinking of themselves first and foremost, and they're taking care of number one. It looks as though they're succeeding and they're prospering. But don't be deceived by appearances, because there's something bigger going on. There's a grander scheme. There's a bigger tapestry that's being woven. And so Peter here draws from the Hebrew Bible, and he talks about several things, one of which he's going to talk about in more detail in the next section. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment, he'll refer to that again. If he did not spare the ancient world, but preserved Noah, a herald of righteous. Remember in Genesis chapter 6 that God regretted that he had made man. He looked upon the sins of humanity and he regretted that he made us. And he decided to go ahead and purge the earth. But he saved Noah, the one righteous man that he found, a herald of righteousness with 7 others, when he brought a flood upon the world of the ungodly. If by turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to ashes, he condemned them to extinction, making them an example of what is going to happen to the ungodly. But he rescued Lot, righteous Lot, greatly distressed by the sensual conduct of the wicked. Then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials and to keep the unrighteous under punishment until the day of judgment. So it's really important for us to recognize that we don't want to fret over the apparent successes of the wicked. I'm going to take us to a psalm that I think says exactly that very thing. Fret not yourself, this is Psalm 37, because of evildoers. Be not envious of wrongdoers, for they will soon fade like the grass and wither like the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. You know, we have a tendency to judge by what we see here in our own world, and to think that what we see with our eyes here in this physical world is all there is. The psalmist realized that that's not the way to go. Peter realizes that's not the way to go. Do what is right. Make sure that you follow God and obey his will and his word rather than following the false prophets and the false teachers. They may appear to have it going on here and now, but I just want to remind you that here and now is temporary. Here and now is finite. What God has planned for us is eternal. And so we need to keep our eyes fixed upon that eternal hope that God has given us. We need to have the same mindset that Paul had in Ephesians when he was praying for his brothers and sisters in Ephesians. And he said this, he prayed for them that they would have the eyes of their hearts enlightened, that they would know what is the hope to which he has called you, and what are the riches of his glorious inheritance in the saints, and what is the immeasurable greatness of God's power to those of us who believe. Brothers and sisters, don't believe the lies of Satan that says the way to success, the way to prosper, is to put away the things of God and follow the ways of the world. Don't believe that lie. It ends in despair. Believe the truth of God. Have the eyes of your hearts enlightened and cling to the hope that he has called you to. Our God is able, as it says in 2 Peter. Our God is able to deliver, to save us out of this perverse generation. Keep your eyes fixed on him. Keep serving him. Keep loving him. And don't despair. Our God will carry us through. Well, God bless you today and every day.